welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to get into the new 2 face palettes from Marc Jacobs. So they recently launched a cafe collection. In that collection was the new concealer and foundation in one. I've already reviewed that. I will link that up in the iCards if you guys have missed that review. But in that video, I told you guys that I had the 2 palettes on the way. And once they got here, I would review them, try them on, and give you my full opinion on them. So these are called the Omega ×3 palette. And they have 2 different color combinations. This one is the Tantalize. This is the 250 Tantalize Glow. And then we have Tan-tastic, which is more for like light, medium skin tones. So we're going to get into the details on this, you guys. I have a lot to say about these palettes. They do smell like coconuts, if anybody was wondering. For me, it's a very, very light, fragrant palette. I can kind of smell the coconut when I open it, but I don't really smell it when I apply it. However, that doesn't really say much at all because my nose doesn't work that well. I don't have the best sense of smell. So these palettes retail for $49 each. I actually bought these on the Marc Jacobs website, but they are currently now available at Sephora. So let's get into the few details about these palettes. They are a limited edition palette with crave-worthy blendable shades of blush, bronzer, and highlight in packaging inspired by swirls of cream and coffee, which I really love the packaging. I think the packaging is really beautiful on these. I love the swirls and the color combination. I think it was really pretty. So the way that they recommend you use these palettes are to start with the Satin Sheen Blush for a perfect rosy flush, then build a sun-kissed glow with a cult favorite bronzer, finish with a softly shimmering highlight to accent your favorite features. Like a coconut latte, this coveted trio is in a delicate coconut scent. I didn't apply these palettes that way only because I have to really apply my bronzers first. It's very hard for me to do my blush and then my bronzer. That's just kind of me. We all have our own way. That is the way that the brand is suggesting you to use it, but I did not use it that way. I wanted to use it the way that I use products so that I could kind of get a good feel for them. For those of you guys that are curious about my skin tone and how these look on my skin, I will leave a list of popular foundations out on the market, including the foundation that I'm wearing today, in the description box down below, and what shade I wear in those popular foundations, just so that you guys have an idea of what my skin tone is and how these will look on you. That was one reason why I wanted to buy both of these palettes, because I wanted to see if the Tantalize palette would work for a deeper skin tone. Of course, I will get into all of that later on in my final thoughts, but for now, we're going to go ahead and jump straight into the application portion of the video. And of course, I will do swatches and comparisons, comparing these to other shades that I have in my collection. And then I will, of course, get into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so let's try on both of these new palettes from Marc Jacobs. Now, the only thing that I have on as far as makeup-wise is foundation, concealer, and I did my eyes, obviously. Everything else, I don't have anything on my face. I didn't want to put any contour on or anything like that because I wanted to see what these colors are based on what's in this palette. So this is 250 Tantalize Glow, and this has more of like a rosy color blush, and then you have the highlighter that's a little bit more on the rose gold, I would say. No, maybe it's a little bit more on the silver side. You know, that color actually reminds me of the Charlotte Tilbury, but it's a very weak highlighter. Ooh. Okay, then we have this one, which is Tan-tastic Glow. This is 200 Tan-tastic Glow. This one's a little bit peachier. The bronzer is not as dark, and then the highlight is a little bit golden. We're going to try both of them on. So let's start with Tan-tastic. I'm going to go into the bronzer. I'm going to use my smooth buffer brush from Sonia G and just tap it in. See if I can even get it to show up on my skin tone. So that's the bronzer. It has some color to it. It's not really strong, but it has some color to it. I think once I go over it with powder, I might lose a little bit of it, which I might have to apply a little bit more, but this isn't, you know, it's not too dark, but it's on the line of not working for my skin tone. So it's one that I'm probably gonna have to pack on, but I do think it looks really pretty, very buttery type of formula, and I don't mind it. It just depends on the level of intensity. You know, once I put powder on and stuff, will I lose the intensity or will I keep it? We'll see. Let's go into the blush. Okay, so the blush is really beautiful. It gives the skin that pop of color. I like the color of that blush. On my skin tone, it's not as peachy as it looks in here. Don't mind my hands, these fake tan hands. So, you know, I test out products for a living, and I was testing out a new fake tan, effed my hands up. I didn't even go on my hands that much, just a tiny bit, and oh my gosh, they look ridiculous. So we're just gonna ignore them. I mean, it is what it is. I'm gonna stress about it. It'll wear off. It'll go away. It just looks ridiculous. I'm gonna take the highlight. I'm gonna go into it. I might have to go into it again once I powder, but let's put the highlight on. So that's the highlight. You can see it kind of has a gold tint to it. It's not a very strong highlight, which, I mean, some people really, you know, some people don't want the strong highlight. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I got the brushes back clean again. Let's go into Tantalize. So I'm going to grab the bronzer. I have a feeling the bronzer on this side is going to be a little bit better for my skin tone. The problem that I'm already seeing is just trying to find those brushes that you can fit in there, you know, because of the way it's created. But I'm going to go right here with the bronzer. Let's go into the blush. And it's pretty pigmented, so I would definitely tap off. That's a beautiful blush. So pretty. It's got a really beautiful pink shade to it. And it's very soft. Now, of course, I'm adding probably a little bit more than I should, but I am going to powder. So once I powder, I'll be able to kind of buff it all in together. Let's go into the highlight. I'm going to go ahead and powder, and then I'll zoom you guys in and so you guys can see kind of the finished look. So this is the final look. I went ahead and powdered, and I sprayed with some setting spray and kind of set everything. The blushes don't look that different on my skin tone. This one from the Tantalize palette looks a little bit more poppy, a little bit more pink, maybe a little bit more terracotta on my skin, but I don't know that there's a big difference on my skin tone between the blushes. Now the bronzers, of course, in the tan-tastic palette, it's a little bit lighter of a color, and it looks really good. On this side, I am having an issue right here, and I'm not sure if that is from, you know, I just got done reviewing a palette. You know, I had to take off my eye makeup and start with the third look. This could have been an issue. I don't know, but it kind of looks a little bit weird. The highlighters, I feel like the gold shows up on my skin tone more than the pink. So this is the tan-tastic side. And this is the Tantalize side. So that's it for the application. Next up, we're going to go ahead and jump into some swatches, and then I will get into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so let me go ahead and get into my thoughts about these two palettes. Let me go ahead and start with the tan-tastic palette. So I do think that this is a very beautiful color combination. And I do think this is going to work for like light to light medium skin tones. Now it is working for me on a medium skin tone. I'm kind of like on the fine line of medium to tan skin tones. It is working for me, and I think the bronzer worked out really beautifully. So I think obviously if you're darker than me, this is not going to be the palette for you. Now, if you have really light skin, I would just be very careful with this palette because it's very pigmented. So the blush bronzer is very pigmented. The highlighter is not that pigmented, but the blush and the bronzers are both very pigmented. So I would, you know, if you have a light to light medium skin, I would dip in here and I would tap that brush off until you kind of get to know what the shade looks like on your skin and how it attaches and how it performs. Go in with a very light hand in the beginning and then kind of work your way to get to know it. That's my recommendation. But it did work for my skin tone. I think the blush is very beautiful and the bronzer is very beautiful. The highlighter is definitely my favorite shade because I love a golden highlight. Now, the thing about the highlighter I will say is it's not a traditional highlighter. As you saw in the swatches, I compared it to the Huda Beauty, which is kind of that gold type of color. My hands look ridiculous. So this is the Huda Beauty. This is the Nymph highlighter in Flora. This highlighter from Marc Jacobs is much weaker. It's not a metallic-y finish. It's not a very strong highlight. So keep that in mind. It's more of kind of like a gold flush. It's not a typical highlighter that we see out on the market. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because there's a lot of people out there that don't like a strong highlight. So if you're somebody that doesn't like a strong highlight, you'll probably really enjoy this. Just depends on what level of intensity you like in a highlight. If you like your cheeks to pop, this might not be the highlighter for you. If you like a very soft, subtle glow, then you'll really enjoy this. So keep that in mind. Let me talk about the Tantalize palette. So here's my thing about this. This palette is definitely for those who have a medium and darker skin. Okay, but it's not going to cover a wide variety of darker skin tones. So I feel like it's probably going to work for like a medium tan to light dark. Okay, I just don't see this working on someone with the color complexion like Jackie Aina. I just can't see. The blush and the highlighter will show up, but the bronzer I don't think would show up on her complexion. So it depends on what level of depth that you have in your skin. I just don't think this is going to cover a wide variety of a deeper skin tones. This swatch right here is like 5 times, okay? Let me show you what that looks like against the first. So truthfully, this doesn't get darker as you add more. So it's almost like you go in 1 or 2 times. I wouldn't recommend going in any more than that because it's really not going to make that much of a difference. You can kind of see what I'm saying here, that, you know, this I packed on 5 different times. This is 1, and there's not that much difference between the 2. The only thing is about the highlight is it has a little bit of a silver base. And I think if this was made for deeper skin tones, they probably should have done a gold with the pink, because when you put silver and pink on top of a deeper skin tone, it can sometimes look way too ashy. And the reason why I know that is because even with my medium to tan skin, there are some highlighters that will look ashy if they're silver on my tan skin. So because of that, they probably would have done better if they would have added some gold to this to kind of break up some of the ashy from the silver and pink. But the highlight is very subtle though. So the key with that is it's not such a strong highlight that it's going to show like a big stripe. It's not like a metallic highlighter. It's a very soft highlighter. So it might just highlight the, you know, beautiful points of the face, but not add a lot of ashiness to it. I would hope not anyway. It's hard to know what it would really look like on a deeper skin tone because I don't have a deeper skin tone, but I'm kind of going based on my experience and what I see. Those of you that have a deeper complexion, you might run into that highlighter possibly looking maybe a little ashy. So keep that in mind. So I've kind of ran into a problem here. So I was getting ready to show you the Charlotte Tilbury up against the Marc Jacobs. And maybe this is not meant to be swatched. It's probably only meant to be picked up with a brush. But this just got hard panned on me. So it's not, I can't get it to come off. I've swatched it and see this. So let me show you. I'm going to wipe my finger off. So it's a formula that will get, so it's a formula that gets hard panned. And that's a bummer. That's a bummer. Especially because the reason why I say that is because it's a formula that's very light on the face anyway. So it's not a very dramatic metallic highlighter. So it's a very soft highlighter in the beginning. Now that I've stuck my finger in there quite a bit and swatched it, now it's completely hard panned. You know, and again, this just might not be a formula that is meant to be swatched. You know, I have to swatch it because, you know, you guys want to see the color, and of course you do, but it got hard panned on me. So that's not a good situation, y'all. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention here in the final thoughts really quick. In the original footage, when I applied it over foundation that had not been powdered. So it was a kind of a fresh foundation. And I've been using these since I originally filmed that video, which has been a couple of days. And I get the best results using these palettes if I put on my foundation and then powder with some setting powder, which you guys know I use the Hourglass translucent setting powder. I just kind of lightly set my foundation down a little bit, and I feel like I get a better application powdering them. So when you saw this application, my skin had been powdered. I feel like if you put this over fresh foundation, especially the bronzer, you get a lot, and it kind of like clumps in certain areas. So like, for example, if I went directly in and put it over fresh foundation, wherever I touch, I have this like dark spot, and I have to kind of work to blend it out. And so kind of keep that in mind. If you guys get this and you're having a struggle with it blending into the skin, try powdering your skin first. That has really helped me. Number two, I want to mention, I wish that I could pop the bronzer out of this palette, which is the Tantalize, and put it into the tan-tastic palette, because I prefer the blush and the highlight in this palette. This bronzer is really not dark enough for my skin to give me much dimension, but the Tantalize palette does give me some dimension. So I wish I could kind of pop them out and replace them. But anyway, the other thing that I want to mention is this is desperately gotten hard panned. So you guys saw in the tutorial, I had to take my finger and kind of scratch it just to be able to put some here on my inner corner and also on the brow bone. So that's kind of a bummer when it comes to the formula of this powder. This highlighter is starting to do that. It's not quite as bad as the pink one, but it's getting there. So these highlights are just very, very subtle. They're not very strong. So if you're somebody that likes a more metallic highlighter, then this is definitely not something I would suggest. The other thing that I want to mention is the bronzer in this palette is the original tan-tastic bronzer. And I actually gave mine away because it just was not working for my skin. It just wasn't dark enough. But I don't know if you guys are like me, but I have saw that bronzer in TJ Maxx several times. So if you were going to buy this because you wanted the bronzer, I would just search your local Marshalls or TJ Maxx or Ross or something like that and look for the bronzer. I've seen them on sale quite a few times as well, because I just don't know that. I'm sure you have the blush in your collection, at least the shade. It is a very soft formula of blush. I don't have anything negative to say about the blush, but I just don't, I kind of feel like because of the way that the palette is designed, you have to have a small brush. So even this brush, which is the Refer number 5, when I go in here, I still pick up some of the blush. Like I can't help but pick up the blush. But that's okay because when you go to apply it, it kind of all blends together anyway. but just keep that in mind, especially if you like a little dimension from your bronzer to your blush. I like these palettes, but I'm not like overly in love with them. I don't feel like they're fully necessary unless you just absolutely love something like this that's more simple. And if you have the skin tone to wear either of the palettes, then I think it's, you know, it depends on what you want and what you're looking for. I don't know that I'll reach for these. I'm not like jumping for joy. I do like the convenience of having it all in one, and I do like the way that they look on my eye. But I can also complete that by using my blush, bronzer, and highlight anyway. You know, so the shades they're beautiful, but they're not unique in any way. On a scale from 1 to 5, I would probably give these palettes like a 3.7, 3.9. I don't think that they're like a must-have, but I don't think that if you bought them that you'll be disappointed. I think it all just depends on what you're looking for in your collection. If you like the convenience and you like the packaging and you like Marc Jacobs formulas, then I don't think you'll be disappointed. I kind of feel like the highlighter is going to be too dark for fair skin. I just don't feel like this highlighter is going to work for fair. I think it's going to work for light medium, you know, medium, tan, but it's not going to work for fair skin, in my personal opinion. And here's the thing. All 3 of these shades need to work in order to justify the $49. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm that type of person that if I'm going to buy a face palette, all 3 shades need to work in order to justify it, especially when you're talking about high-end makeup and high-end prices. Like, I need to be able to use every shade in order to justify it. Those are my thoughts on this collection. Sound off down below in the comment section. Let us know if you guys picked up these palettes, what your skin tone is, and which palette you bought and how you're enjoying it. I do think it's going to be very helpful and interesting to hear about the Tantalize palette. Anybody that has a deeper complexion, if you bought the Tantalize palette, is it working for you? Let us know. I'm very curious, and I know it would be very helpful for everyone in the comment section. But that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in my next video. Love you. Bye.